My name is Justin Loria, and today I'm going to show you how to do a frontside pop shove it. A frontside pop shove it is one of the most fundamental flat ground tricks and involves popping the board into the air like an ollie and having the board spin underneath you 180 degrees in a frontside rotation. This trick can also be done with a backside rotation, and since it's so much more common for people to learn the backside version first, that trick is usually just referred to as a pop shove it. For a full tutorial on how to learn that trick, you can click the link up here or in the description section below. Now, most people will agree that the frontside version is just a little bit harder to learn than the backside version when you're first starting out, because when you spin the board with a frontside rotation, the board is going to spin and land a little bit behind you, and it's kind of hard to see where the board is when you go to land on it. However, with a little bit of practice and some tips on proper technique, soon you'll be able to land your frontside pop shove-its just as consistently. Alright, so to get started with this trick, first you want to make sure that you have your ollies down solid. Once you have those, you can start practicing the motion of popping a frontside pop shove-it with just your back foot, keeping your front foot on the ground. When you move on to starting on the board with both feet, your front foot won't really be interacting with the board at all, other than you'll just be jumping off of it and then getting it out of the way, so you can get a pretty good feel for what you need to do to get the board to rotate properly just with this practice step. Be careful though not to stand with your front foot too close to the board while you're trying this practice step, because the way you're going to be rotating the board, it can very easily hit you in the shin or land on your foot. Now for this step, I want you to pay very close attention to the best way to get your board to spin 180 degrees as in place as possible and without flipping over. The best way that I've found is to focus on making the tail of the board touch the ground before you shove it away from you to start the rotation, rather than trying to kick the board with your foot to make it start spinning and just hoping that it makes contact with the ground on its way around. You have to hit the tail of the board off the ground hard first in order to get the board to pop up into the air high enough. Now, this is a really important point because when you move on to trying the full maneuver, you're going to want to use the exact same technique with your back foot. Alright, so once you get the hang of that practice step, you can move on to practicing popping this trick starting with both feet on the board. Position your feet so that your front foot is sitting right behind the front set of bolts and your back foot is on the tail so that the ball of your foot is right in the center of the tail. If your back foot is positioned either too far toe side or too far heel side, the board will have a tendency to want to flip over on you while it's in the air, so make sure that the part of your foot that you jump off of is positioned right in the middle. As you pop the trick, just like before, focus on making the tail hit the ground with a lot of force, and then kind of as an afterthought, also push it away from you to get it spinning in a frontside rotation. Like I said before, you don't need to use your front foot to help rotate the board or to pull the board up into the air like you would for an ollie, so as you go to pop the trick, just pull your front foot straight up into the air and hold it there until the board rotates around 180 degrees. Then once it's done spinning, you can use your front foot to catch the board and keep it from over-rotating. Now, just like with your ollie, make sure that you're bending at your knees and not at your waist, so keep your back completely straight and bend at your knees, and then whenever you go to pop the trick, make sure you're not rotating your shoulders in either direction, so try to keep them parallel to the board the entire time. At first, you might want to start out by landing with just your front foot on the board, and then slowly work your way up to landing on the board with both feet as you develop the muscle memory necessary to spin the board in a consistent manner. One thing that might help you get familiar with the motion you'll want to use with your back foot is to start out practicing frontside shove-its using just a skateboard deck on top of some carpet. Keep in mind that you'll have to modify the motion a little bit once you go back to trying it on the concrete again, but if you're having trouble fully committing to landing on the board after you pop it, this practice step can really help you get in the right mindset of landing with both feet on the board after rotating it 180 degrees frontside. You'll probably notice that when you do this trick, especially if you do the stationary version of it, the board will want to spin and land a little bit behind you, so at first, you may have to consciously jump a little bit backwards towards your heels in order to land back on the board. However, once you move on to doing this trick while rolling, This will become less of a problem, and you should eventually only have to worry about jumping back just a little bit, if any at all. Now, one thing I want to mention about this trick is that when I first started learning how to do it, I was only practicing the stationary version of it, and no matter how hard I tried and how many hours of practice I put in, the board was always landing too far behind me, and I was never able to get both feet to land squarely on top of the board. And it was only after I started trying to do this trick while moving that I was actually able to land my first one. So my advice to someone who's learning how to do this trick for the first time would be to go back and forth between practicing it stationary and while moving until you land it the first couple of times. You might find that, like it was for me, it's easier to do this trick while you're rolling forward than trying to do it from a standstill. If you find that the board is consistently over-rotating on you, you can try to adjust the starting position of your front foot so that it's closer to the nose. Likewise, if you find that the board is most of the time under-rotating, try starting with your front foot a little closer to your back foot. Once you start getting the hang of it, make sure to practice them a little bit at the start of every skate session during your warm-up, and soon enough, they'll become one of the most consistent flat ground tricks that you know. If you still need any help with your frontside pop shuvits, feel free to ask any questions you might have in the comment section below. Make sure to follow NSI Skateboarding on Instagram, where I'm sharing all of you guys' latest clips every single day. And lastly, never stop improving.